All right, so we left off with Conrad trying to convince Piper to escape, and she's saying, nope, not if we don't take everybody with us. He's saying that's impossible. So here we are. We're going to continue with chapter 14. Conrad was desperate. His desperation meant he needed Piper McLeod, and Conrad Harrington III had never needed anyone. It's certainly safe to say that no one had ever needed him, let alone cared about him. Both his father and mother saw to it that he had absolutely anything and everything except their time, attention, and affection. A child was a necessary accessory in a politically motivated power couple, and they were overjoyed when Conrad III arrived. He was exactly what he should have been, only more. Unfortunately, much more. His acute intelligence was something neither of them wanted, and initially, the only use they could find for it was a dinner party diversion. Thank you, Nanny. Do put Connie on my lap. Abigail Churchill Harrington accepted the boy, outfitted in a spotless silk sailor suit, and held him as one slightly afraid, like he was a wild chinchilla or an exotic snake. Dinner guests instantly cooed on cue, their dessert forks pausing en route to their lips, dripping with zabaglione and balsamic roasted strawberries. What a lovely child! He looks just like his father. You must be proud. Yes, yes, thank you. Abigail smiled, turning to the guest seated to her right. You know, Mr. Vice President, our little Connie has already memorized all the presidents and states, too. They call him Connie. Such a wonder for a 2-year-old, don't you think? Of course, both Galileo and Newton are in my family tree, but that is neither here nor there. All the same, you simply can't get away from good breeding. Nanny, why are Connie's eyes closed? Nanny! Oh, they're open again. Connie, dear, recite the states and their capitals for our nice guests. Abigail proudly held her child until he had finished his recitation, and the guests applauded, whereupon Nanny whisked the child out of sight, not to be seen or thought about again till he was required at the next dinner party, or tea party, or photo opportunity. At the age of 6, darling little Connie's performance schedule was cut short when he questioned his father on a matter of foreign policy in front of the Chinese ambassador at the annual Thanksgiving cocktail party. What had begun as a lovely diversion was proving to be an embarrassment and liability to the family. Conrad's intelligence was so extraordinary that no teacher could surpass it, let alone match it, and no other school would accept him, particularly the best ones. Not long afterward, Conrad started to, in the words of the best child psychologist in Washington, D.C., at a rate of $500 an hour, act out. At 7 years old, little Connie's acting out culminated in a foray into the National Defense Department mainframe, where he remotely reprogrammed an orbiting satellite armed with nuclear missiles. When the CIA notified the Oval Office, the president found he was not well disposed toward a 7-year-old having his finger on the red button. Rather than deal with the embarrassment, Abigail and Conrad Harrington willingly handed little Connie over to Dr. Hellion when she came knocking on their door. No questions asked, thus neatly avoiding any political fallout from the debacle. Incidentally, the satellite that caused the kerfuffle in the first place had a new trajectory thanks to Conrad, which prevented a collision with an aging Russian space station that had slipped from its orbit. No one, least of all the president, bothered to attach any significance or thanks to this factoid. Conrad's ability was at once a blessing and a curse. With relative ease, he immediately saw through Dr. Hellion's lies and understood the true nature of insane. Unfortunately, that same intelligence informed him that there was nothing he could do about it. Conrad and Dr. Hellion were equally matched opponents. Conrad's intelligence versus Dr. Hellion's security systems, agents, research, and drugs. While Conrad couldn't escape, he took effective countermeasures that made him immune to Dr. Hellion's tactics. Had Conrad's parents not been such political powerhouses, Dr. Hellion would have eagerly employed the more drastic rehabilitation means at her disposal, but in Conrad's case, the Harrington name bound her hands. Conrad couldn't escape. Dr. Hellion couldn't make him normal. Thus, they remained in a deadlock year after year with no end in sight. Escape was all Conrad thought about. It was the only thing that mattered. and escape was absolutely impossible. For 4 long years, Conrad remained buried alive on the 13th level in a state of unspeakable agony. His brain activity was relentlessly in motion, analyzing, creating, problem solving, calculating, its capacity exponentially growing in staggering leaps and bounds. Day and night, it worked nonstop. Yet Conrad had no vent for any of it. Dr. Hellion made sure of that. No way to turn it off, and it gushed inside him, a raging river of intellectual power battering against the feeble dam of his body, demanding an outlet. Year after year, he existed like a half-starved dog, chained in a dirt yard under a burning sun without shade or water, and the pain and pressure turned Conrad mean and mad. If he didn't get out soon, Comrade Harrington knew that he was going to go insane, and escape was absolutely impossible. Until there was Piper McLeod. The probability of a flyer is so rare, so completely out of the ordinary, and it was the very thing Comrade needed to make an escape plan work. The minute he saw that Piper could fly, he knew hope. He carefully plotted and prepared for every eventuality except one: Piper's refusal to leave without the others. How can she be so colossally stupid? Didn't she understand? To make matters worse, Piper had somehow developed the mistaken impression that they were now friends. Each night, when Nurse Toll finished night check and Comrade sat down to plan the escape, Piper made a habit of flying through his window and chattering nonstop about everything and anything that was going on inside her head. Some information even like a genius like Conrad dreaded to know. I saw Violet eating the chocolate brownie at dinner, and I nearly split. I wanted to warn her so badly. You reckon we'll be able to tell him soon? Piper sat on Conrad's bed, holding Sebastian and gently stroking him. The little Beck cricket was fully recovered and liked to hop between Piper's fingers. Comrade mumbled, not really listening. I know I've been down here a good long stretch already, but I gotta admit, it's like I wasn't here at all. Like my eyes were taken right out of their sockets and I was walking around as blind as a bat. It's as plain as day to me now that this whole place is crazy. Like how all we do is weave baskets and memorize the same names and dates over and over again. Sure, we're busy, but we're not learning or doing anything useful. It just doesn't sit right with me. I gotta tell you that when I saw what I saw and you told me what you did, I felt awful in here. Piper pointed to her heart. A person wants to believe in folks and trust things. And when you can't, life doesn't seem worth living anymore. That's exactly how I felt. Like it was hopeless. But the more I got to pondering it, the more I just figured that even if some folks are bad, there's others who aren't. So I reckon just won't ever give up my flying for anyone ever again. I don't care what they tell me. There's just some things you got to keep for yourself, no matter who asks you or how nice they're being. Then it doesn't make any difference if folks are good or bad, because they can't do anything to me if I won't let them. Know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You sure are working hard, Conrad. I'm fixing to help you, too, if you tell me what to do. Conrad didn't respond. I'm real useful if you give me half a chance. Even my ma says I can husk a corn faster than anyone, and she's stingy in the praise department. Conrad not only doubted that Piper could help, but, except for her flying, it was clear to him she was a terrible liability. So when the very next night Piper landed in her room in a state of great excitement and grandly announced that she'd figured out exactly how to help, he braced for the worst. I got to thinking how you explained about Dr. Hellion and her way of getting us not to use our gifts, how she explained things in such a way that we'd think we didn't want to do it anymore and we wouldn't. Well, it makes sense then that if we wanted to use our gifts again, then we would, right? So then I got to wondering how I'd get the others to want to, and it came to me right off, just like that. They need to dream, think up what they would do with their talents and get them real excited about it. Then they might get a hankering to follow that dream. Ah, Comrade said out loud. That is absolutely ridiculous and won't work, Comrade said inwardly. All the same, Conrad knew that if Piper's time and attention were occupied, she was less likely to get in his way or otherwise screw up an already difficult situation, so he let the matter go. So I got right to it, and I started with Violet, and you know what she told me? She said that if she was to get out, she'd be an archeo something. It's when folks go off to far off lands and dig up stuff from way, way long ago, like tombs and crypts and the like. Violet explained the whole thing to me. She says when they get to digging, they find things all sealed up, and so she figures she could shrink down really small and go inside before the others. She reckons she'd be the first one in places that no one's been near in 100 years, maybe thousands of years, and see stuff painted on the walls and look at old King Tut. Soon, if as soon as she gets herself an eyeful, she'll come right out and tell the others what was what and how to get in without hurting anything. Isn't that something? I told Violet that she had herself a real good plan. Piper looked to Conrad, but he didn't turn around or acknowledge her presence in any way. That Conrad sure don't say much, she whispered to Sebastian later on as she settled into sleep. Piper chalked his silence up to all the hard work he'd been putting into planning the escape, and the next morning approached her approached her day with a renewed vim and vigor, excitedly reporting her findings to Conrad that night. You ask folks a question, and they'll tell you the most amazing things you've never heard of or wouldn't thought up, even if you lived to be 100. Like Smitty's got everything all worked out. He's going to be a detective and solve all the real hard crimes because he can see stuff other people can't. Isn't that something? I told him he'd be really good at it and I'd hire him. And his chest swelled up like he'd got a balloon in it. And then Lily, she's all small and dainty, but I can tell you right now that her insides are as strong as steel. Lily's going to join NASA and become an astronaut. You know why? Conrad didn't answer and Piper didn't notice. Because she says that when they go up in space, it's real troublesome moving stuff outside the spaceship. And Lily figures she can do that as easy as pie. Don't that just take the cake? I can see it too. Lily all fine in her space outfit, looking out the window of some ship, picking up space rocks or fixing a broken engine. She'd be a real credit to us all, and it'd be a shame if she didn't get to go up to the moon. And I told her so straight out. She told me that when you're on the moon and you look down on Earth, it's real pretty, and promised that she'll take a picture to show me. Think of that. Once Piper got started, she learned everything about her classmates. She learned that Myrtle Grabtrash, a tall, thin, gawky girl whose dark hair somehow managed to completely conceal her face, was her mama's 12th child. Myrtle was born in a one-room shack on a piece of real estate shared by the railroad tracks of the Georgia Amtrak, and at the moment of her birth, a train crashed right through their tiny shack. The train, which had been mistakenly rerouted onto the abandoned tracks, didn't bother to stop, and so it took a whole week before Myrtle was finally apprehended at the Peachtree, Georgia station. Her mama liked to say that it was the first time Myrtle ran away. It wasn't to be the last. Myrtle's best friend was Daisy, and Piper discovered that Dr. Hellion apprehended Daisy after she picked up a whole bulldozer and threw it upside down to prevent the construction of a hazardous waste dump. Only after persistent questioning and great patience was Piper able to extract from Daisy the information that the dump was going to destroy a family of pygmy rabbits burrowing in the soil of the purposed land. Small, Daisy told Piper in her slow way, and then held out her large hand and cupped it in the approximate size to show Piper exactly how tiny the fluffy gray and brown rabbits were. Extinct, too small, not strong enough. Daisy didn't exactly have a way with words. After Daisy tossed a few more large pieces of heavy equipment, including a crane and an asphalt machine, the developer got a little antsy, and Daisy earned herself a one-way helicopter trip to Insane, leaving behind a family of pygmy bunnies to wage their own battle against a multinational construction company. Every day, Daisy worried about her miniature bunny family, wondering if they had managed to escape and find themselves a new home. Pause there.